It's a cold Thursday here in Seoul. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Lee-Jun. Let's get started with a look at today's highlights. Things are looking up for the Korean economy as expectations are rising. The Asia's fourth largest economy may achieve growth in the 3% range. With the 2018 budget proposal passed, how will it help to improve the economy and people's livelihoods next year? We'll sit down with an expert to talk about this. But first, Korea's economic growth forecast is becoming rosier by the day. A growing number of financial institutions are projecting the country's growth in the 3% range this year, as well as next year, on the back of a recovery in the global economy. Our Kim Ji-yeon starts us off.
Data compiled by the Korea Center for International Finance shows 4 out of 9 major foreign investment banks hiked their 2018 growth forecast for the local economy in November. Barclays and Goldman Sachs projected the South Korean economy to grow 3.1% next year, while Bank of America Merrill Lynch and UBS forecast 3%. They're joining Seoul's finance ministry, the International Monetary Fund, and the OECD that have already projected 3% range growth for the South Korean economy in 2018. And it's not just next year's forecast. Some have upped their 2017 forecast to the low 3% range. Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan had the highest growth forecast at 3.2%. Out of the 9 major investment banks, HSBC was the only one with a forecast below 3% at 2.7%. Citigroup, which projects 3.1% growth for this year and 2.9% for next year, attributed its rosy forecast to South Korea's third quarter GDP growth, which spiked 1.4% on booming semiconductor exports. It also pointed to the Moon Jae-in administration's income-driven growth initiatives, as well as improved relations between Seoul and Beijing. Kim Ji-yeon, Business Daily.
Korea Electric Power Corporation, the country's state-run utility firm, has been selected as the preferred bidder for a nuclear reactor project in the UK. Kepco plans to negotiate with the consortium in charge of building the plant over the next few months before putting pen to paper on the deal. Our Park Hee-jun reports.
South Korea's state-run energy firm Kepco has been selected as the preferred bidder for the UK's New Generation Consortium, a $19 billion nuclear project billed as the largest nuclear plant in Western Europe. Toshiba, which holds a 60% stake in the New Gen Consortium in charge of building the plant in Cumbria in the northwest of England, announced Kepco as its preferred bidder on Wednesday. Toshiba has been suffering financially due to losses in its U.S. nuclear business Westinghouse earlier this year, forcing it to withdraw from the overseas nuclear business. Kepco has been competing with China General Nuclear for the contract. But Kepco's successful performance in the United Arab Emirates, along with China's poor cybersecurity record, helped it beat China General Nuclear. According to Kepco, the company will negotiate with Toshiba over the next few months, aiming to sign a deal sometime in the first half of next year. It will also need approval from the British government. If the deal goes ahead, it will be the second overseas nuclear project contract for Kepco after it built a nuclear power plant in the United Arab Emirates 8 years ago. And with its victory in Britain, the firm plans to expand its nuclear exports to other parts of the world. Park Hee-jun, Business Daily.
President Moon Jae-in proposed closer economic ties with Russia and Eurasia, dubbed the New Northern Policy, during his visit to Vladivostok in September. And this morning, the first meeting to work out the details of that policy took place right here in Seoul. Our Kim Hae-sung has more.
The first meeting on the Presidential Committee on Northern Economic Cooperation kicked off Thursday. It comes 3 months after the committee was established in August with the goal of boosting economic ties between South Korea and the Eurasia region.
I'm more than delighted to launch the first meeting, the New Northern Policy, as announced by President Moon at the Eastern Economic Forum last September. It is expected to help create a new growth engine in South Korea and is critical in lowering tensions and fostering co-prosperity in Northeast Asia.
On top of ministers from the Finance, Foreign Affairs, Unification, and Trade Ministries, 24 experts from academia and research institutes will help outline mid to long-term goals and detailed plans of the new Northern policy. The key for the first meeting was Russia. Experts discussed ways to boost exchanges between South Korea and Russia through 9 key areas, or the so-called 9 bridges, including power, natural gas, railroads, shipbuilding, agriculture, among other areas. The goal is to develop closer ties with Eurasian countries through economic exchanges by combining Eurasia's huge natural resources with Korea's know-how in infrastructure building. Mega projects like the Trans-Siberian Railway won't be easy given the tensions due to North Korea and sanctions on Russia, but the committee says step-by-step cooperation starting with agriculture and natural gas and easing customs regulations will help lay the basis for long-term projects. The committee is set to hold meetings every quarter. The second meeting will be held next spring, where some 30 experts will come up with a more detailed policy on China, Mongolia, and other Eurasian countries. Kim Hae-sung, Business Daily.
Korea's agriculture and livestock exports to China have rebounded since Seoul and Beijing agreed last month to ease tensions over Seoul's deployment of a U.S. THAAD missile defense system. According to the Korea Agro-Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation on Thursday, exports were up more than 4% on year in November at some $170 million US. Agricultural exports to China from January to the end of October had fallen nearly 10% compared to the same period last year. Korea's total agricultural exports from January to November amounted to $6.2 billion, up more than 5% from a year earlier. Korean firms slightly extended their lead in DRAM chips in the third quarter, accounting for a combined 72% of the global market share. Fresh analysis by IHS Markit showed Samsung Electronics maintained its solid lead with 44.5% of the world's DRAM market by sales. Second place SK Hynix had a market share of 27.9%. U.S.-based Micron Technology and Taiwan's Nanya Technology and Winbond Electronics rounded out the top 5. The report also said total sales in the July through September period marked a fresh high of $19.7 billion, a 35% on-quarter rise. Industry watchers remain optimistic about the future of dynamic random access memory chips, believing demand will only grow with sectors adopting AI and the Internet of Things into their products. A state-run think tank has issued a warning over the nation's over-reliance on semiconductor exports. From its perspective, the economy may suffer if it remains in its current state and the semiconductor industry falters. Our Elliot Kim has this story.
Korean exports have been setting record high after record high in recent months, almost entirely due to an unprecedented boom in demand for semiconductors from Korean companies like Samsung and SK Hynix. In 2012, semiconductors accounted for only 9% of total exports, but that figure has reached 16.8% this year. The growth rate is unprecedented on its own, and chips accounted for 42.9% of the 17.3% total growth in exports through October of this year. The growth in outbound semiconductor shipments far outpaced other industries, with the next fastest riser being chips at just 10.4%. However, Korea Development Institute is worried about an over-reliance on a single industry.
The dependence on semiconductors will likely continue, making it difficult to have optimistic forecasts for economic growth rate in both the short and medium terms.
Predicting a near peak for the industry's development in its current cycle, the KDI predicts just a 3% rise in equipment investment next year after reaching nearly 15% this year. The industry may have reached a soft limit, leaving it unable to create further jobs. If the success isn't replicated by other SMEs, the economic growth rate is expected to fall to just 2.9% next year from 3.1% this year, despite the global economy strengthening and consumer spending increasing.
In the future, the economy will be able to swing heavily based on external factors and the semiconductor industry cycles.
KDI sees too many unknowns, with the semiconductor price bubble looking to pop at any moment, and other companies like TSMC and Intel attempting to quickly close the gap with their Korean rivals. The government is eyeing income growth and innovation to serve as new growth engines to drive the economy next year. But if the drive is unsuccessful and semiconductors falter, The economy may be left stranded. Elliot Kim, Business Daily.
The big news this week was the passing of the 2018 budget bill by the National Assembly on Wednesday. The government hopes the budget plan will help to create more public jobs while boosting welfare and defense. To tell us more about this, Professor Kim Se-won from Ewha Women's University joins us in the studio today. So good to see you.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, so how does this 2018 budget compare to budgets from previous years?
Next year's government budget is increasing by 7.1% or 28 trillion won, which is the largest increase since 2009's over 10% increase due to global economic crisis.
Okay.
Actually, the size and structure of the government budget is very important for next year's economy because government decide to use expansionary fiscal policy or spending more money as a main tool to recover the economy. So in the next year, government's budget will cover about 29% of total GDP.
Wow. Now, the lion's share went to welfare, where the government has allocated 133 billion US dollars. Tell us more about this.
We remember that new government's, big picture of new government's economic policy is supporting more welfare-related expenses and investing more on people's education and jobs.
Right.
And that in the end creates more economic growth. So this time, Korean government reshuffled all different expenses and focused more on welfare expenses and investment in people and creating more jobs in public sectors. So by doing that, for the first time in history, welfare-related budget will exceed 1/3 of the total budget.
Now, what proportion of the budget then has been allocated for social overhead capital projects?
Government said so many times previously that they will cut off the expenses or budget on SOC because we are fully already equipped with a good railroad system and highways and airports and so on. But interestingly, Congress, not the government, increased the SOC-related budget by 1.3 trillion won. There are two reasons behind that. The first is if SOC investment budget decreases seriously, that downturns the construction industry quickly. And the second reason is it is said that quite a few influential congressmen wanted to increase SOC investment because they are kind of related to their local interest. So that is the matter of moral hazard, actually.
Now, also passed was a revised tax code bill, another area which the main opposition party has contested. Now, the corporate tax rate has been raised to 25% for businesses with taxable profits of more than $275 million.
Right.
Now, at this point, I'm wondering, how does this compare to that of other countries around the world?
There has been long conflicts between public sector and private sector, and ruling parties and opposition parties on raising corporate tax. First of all, it is true that raising corporate tax is against the global trend because U.S. decided to decrease corporate tax from 35% to 20%.
Right.
And Japanese government also has the exactly same plan down to 20%. But on the other side, we have to remember that the new raised 25 corporate tax will be only imposed about 77 really huge corporations.
Okay.
And their efficient tax rate, in other words, they are receiving quite a few different kinds of tax deductions because they are contributing a lot to economy and society. So real burden of highest maximum tax rate is much less than 25%, actually.
So it's not as big of a burden than we think
Exactly.
it is. All right. Well, how helpful do you believe the budget will be in improving the Korean economy next year?
Of course, government's stronger support on low-income people and unemployed will lessen the problem of long-lasting unfair income distribution in Korea, which is a necessary part of government budget. But there comes really serious question whether that expenses will have a positive impacts in different parts of the economy, which will generate more income of the nation. So this is something unprecedented experiment in Korean history. So if it works, we will have better, higher, stronger economic growth. But if it does not work, the economy is staying the same, but the government that will be increased seriously.
Well, let's hope for the best at this point. All right. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much.
Let's now get a quick check on how the markets fared here in Seoul today. Korean shares ended lower on Thursday as policy uncertainty over in Washington kept Wall Street investors on the sidelines overnight. At the closing bell, the benchmark Kospi was down 0.5% to end at 2,461.98 on foreign investor net selling. The tech-heavy Kosdaq was also weaker by 1.94%, wrapping at 753.46. On the foreign exchange counter, the Korean won further weakened to 1093.51 against the greenback. The main bourse was softer despite an update for market bellwether Samsung Electronics. Shares ended up 1.44%, while number 2 SK Hynix shed 1.94%. Hyundai Motor, POSCO, and LG Chem also wrapped the day on the back foot. Bitcoin surged to another record high on Wednesday, surpassing the $14,000 mark less than 24 hours. It roared past $12,000. The digital currency's rapid rise comes ahead of the official launch of Bitcoin futures trading by CME Group. The Tokyo Financial Exchange is also reportedly taking steps to launch Bitcoin futures trading starting from next year. Bitcoin's value has spiked more than 14-fold since the start of this year. However, many analysts are still skeptical about the digital currency, saying it's purely speculative in nature, while others forecast it could reach $40,000 by the end of next year. As of Wednesday, about 1/5 of all Bitcoin transactions were conducted in Korean won, a sign of the Bitcoin frenzy that has gripped the nation. A number of revisions to Korea's tax code has been passed by the National Assembly, which are set to be implemented starting from next year. For one, a 70% reduction in income tax will be applied to several demographic groups for up to 3 years if they were to work for a small company. They include young Koreans aged between 15 to 29, women in between jobs, and those over 60 years of age. Also, if an employee working at a small firm were to newly join a social insurance plan, the government will grant a 50% tax deduction on their subscription for the next 2 years. In terms of monthly rent, workers with an annual gross salary of less than 50 million won, or roughly $45,800, will receive a tax credit of 12%. Those earning roughly between $50,000 to $64,000 will receive a 10% refund in their rent. Traveling to and from Pyeongchang, the host city of the upcoming Winter Olympics, is now set to become much more convenient. A high-speed train network is now in operation, which connects the Alpine city not only to the capital Seoul, but also Incheon International Airport. Our Lee Ju-young tells us more.
A test run of this high-speed train is currently underway at Incheon International Airport Terminal 2, ahead of the Pyeongchang Winter Games in February.
A route connecting Incheon Airport and Gangneung will run during the Olympic period. We're making sure the test runs are being carried out safely.
With the shortage of accommodation cited as one of the biggest problems, authorities are hoping to address this problem by better connecting major transportation hubs. When visitors land at Incheon Airport, they can take the KTX there through Seoul all the way to Gangwon-do Province in a little over 2 hours at a top speed of 250 kilometers per hour. From Seoul, the trip will take roughly an hour and a half, whereas it would have previously taken 5 hours on conventional rail, making it possible for visitors to have day trips. The route connecting Incheon Airport and Gangneung will operate 16 times a day, while the Seoul-Gangneung line will operate more frequently at 35 times daily. KTX tickets will be made available from 2 months prior to the departure date.
There's a considerable distance between the host city and the entry port, but with the opening of the Incheon-Gangneung line, more people would be able to come to Jinbu Station faster.
But the biggest question at this point appears to be whether or not the new Seoul-Gangneung line will be profitable even after the Olympic period.
There are no clear projections yet regarding the post-Olympics demand for the costly infrastructure. Lee Ju-young, Business Daily.
Logistics is considered to be a key cog in supporting the manufacturing and distribution industries in the era of Fourth Industrial Revolution. Now, playing an important role in this is Busan Port, which is home to the world's 6th busiest port in terms of cargo volume. Take a look.
2,500 staff members are hard at work at the Renault Samsung plant in Busan. This plant manufactures 300,000 cars of 7 different models annually. Among 18 plants owned by Renault Group worldwide, the Busan plant is ranked first, while coming in at number 8 among 148 plants worldwide, according to an evaluation. Thanks to the automated logistics system, production efficiency increased by replacing forklifts and tractors. As the automobile production process is subdivided from assembly to completion, fast and accurate logistics leads to increased productivity.
Renault Samsung's Busan plant has a mixed production system where 7 models are manufactured from one assembly line. Therefore, we produce various parts to meet customers' demands. Since the automated system can transport all these parts, our staff are finding it much easier to work. I can proudly say that our Busan plant is the world's best smart factory.
Logistics are like blood vessels connecting production to sales. While logistics consisted of simple distribution systems in the past, they are now creating high added value amid the production process. The worldwide logistics market was worth $8.7 trillion as of 2016. Its growth is expected to double from the current rate by the year 2024. Korea is located at the center of Northeast Asia, and Busan is its hub, with the logistics market worth $160 billion per annum. As the home to Korea's first trade port, Busan began cultivating various related industries, and in 2008, it was designated as a free economic zone, with cargo flowing through its interconnected network of railways, ports, and airports. An abundant logistics infrastructure actively supports the manufacturing sector, like machinery, automobile, and shipbuilding. This year, Busan was named a top 3 economic zones in Asia and being viewed as an international business city.
Thanks to the Busan New Port, Songjong Railways and Gimhae International Airport, Busan's free economic zone is at the center of a tri-port connecting sky, ocean and land. Our economic zone is situated at the center of the Northeast Ocean Economic Belt, which has great growth potential if we can maintain an organic partnership with neighboring areas.
This is a warehouse run by Japan's top logistics company. Amid rapid economic developments in Northeast Asia, the firm has been vying to become a center of intermediary trade. Last year, they chose Busan New Port as their center of trade in Asia. Currently, all imported and exported cargo being handled by the firm is being handled at Busan New Port. This way, the company can save transportation time and logistics costs compared to using a Japanese port.
Nippon Express has moved to Busan New Port to establish a trade hub in Northeast Asia. We are seeing sales growth and the creation of new jobs, and we would like to provide our logistics knowledge to other shipping companies.
Korea is seeking to become a powerhouse in the international logistics industry. With geographical advantages and stable infrastructure, Busan Port is moving towards becoming the country's leading source of growth in the era of Fourth Industrial Revolution.
And that brings us to the end, but we'll be back tomorrow with more of the day's top business stories, so don't forget to tune in then. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.